Hello and welcome everybody for our filming today of Scriptures and Songs. We're going to be talking with our wonderful pastor, Father Joe. We're so excited to be talking with him today and to be sharing his thoughts on everything, as he has been our leader for almost 7 years now.
A little
over 7 years. Wonderful, wonderful. So we're just so happy that you've been with us for all this time, and really grateful for all you've done, particularly during such a strange time. I don't think you anticipated dealing with a worldwide pandemic. So one of the questions that we had that was one of our first questions that we really were interested in is, when did you know that you wanted to be a priest?
Okay, I thought about how to answer this question. I think part of it had to do, I was fortunate that my family, from the time I can remember, always went to church on Sunday. It was just what you did. And everyone, grandparents, aunts, uncles, they all went to church together. When I first began in understanding what church meant, it was still in Latin. But the priests in the parish at St. Mary's in Lancaster were just awesome, and we had a big school, and the sisters, and it just, you liked being there at the parish. And then when I was in 5th grade, we learned the Latin, became altar boys, and served Mass almost every day. Our crews were assigned for a week at a time, just the priests were really good. Our first pastor, I remember, Monsignor Link, and the 2 associates were Father Bugman and Father Hassler. They just were outstanding. And almost every priest I remember growing up was just really good. And so I think that sort of set the tone. In fact, in those days, they had a prep seminary for high school guys. And we actually had like 12 guys from St. Mary's in it at one time. And in St. Mary's in Lancaster, we actually led the league in vocations for years. Assumption Parish and Black Rock was another one that was very high in vocations. But anyway, but it's different wanting to become a priest and then trying to become a priest. And so I really didn't feel that this was really what I wanted to do until about 3 years before ordination, where I really had to make the decision on where my life was going at the time.
So were you already in seminary at the time when you were kind of...
Oh, yes. I mean, well, I just thought it was the natural thing to do, was go to the high school seminary, because I was interested, at least interested in it. And so it was funny that after high school, and then we went to Wadham's Hall in Ogdensburg for 2 years, the college seminary close in Buffalo. A lot of guys dropped out. It was in the middle of Vietnam. A lot of things had changed. The church was starting to change in a lot of different ways. And a lot of priests and nuns were leaving for whatever reason. It just was different. It was different. But I still wanted to become a priest. And so I went through the process. And then, like I said, about 3 or 4 years before, that's when I said, no, if I'm going to be a priest, I have to think about it. You know, I really put my heart and soul into it, instead of just wondering if this is what I wanted to do. So that's pretty much the story on that.
So I think I know the answer to this one, and I think anybody who has been around you for a long time knows the answer to this one. But who is your favorite saint of all of them, and why?
Well, I didn't really have much of a choice in this matter, because when I was at a very young age, my mom had a great devotion for St. Teresa. She had a rose bush planted in her front yard. And then she told me the story about why it was so important to her, and it was because shortly after my brother Bobby, the second one, after me, was born, she became very sick. I mean, to the point of death almost. Where, so this would have been 1955. So she was probably like 28 at the time, and they took her into the hospital, and she later told me that they didn't think she would come out. In fact, they called my father to bring us up so she could look at it. I think it had something to do with tuberculosis.
I was going to ask if you had known.
But anyway, so my father took us up to the window to wave to her, but we didn't know. We were like 3 and 2, you know. And so anyway, so she recovered, and in fact, she told me later on the doctors actually did a study on this in a paper on why she got better, you know. And so she thought it was the result of St. Teresa. And so 2 years later, my brother was born, my third brother, Terry. So that's how he got named his name.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes. So she always had a statue of St. Teresa, and every parish I've been at as a pastor always had a statue of St. Teresa in a rose bush.
And I think you added
that one right here.
Right here, because it's one of my favorite parts of the garden.
So that's how the devotion got, and I do the novena every year, just because I feel it's important, and it carries on sort of a tradition.
And that's really cool about even knowing your brother's name.
Yeah.
Being Terry, based on that.
Yeah.
Another one that somebody asked, and this one you probably have a lot, but what is a moment that you were most proud of in the ministry? And you've been now a priest for
almost 44 years.
Almost 44 years, and I know was St. Christopher's your first assignment?
That was my first assignment as a priest.
And so you've had all of this time to have these moments.
Yeah.
So which ones, if you have any that stick
Well,
out?
I don't think to be proud of something, I can't really be specific on that. I think the thing I remember most is when I had to leave a parish.
Oh.
And it was tough. There were a couple ones I shouldn't even say if I wanted to leave, but it was a different time, and but I felt when I left a parish in the first years, the people liked me and they were happy, and we remained in touch. And then after I became a pastor, it was a little different because 3 of my assignments were I got called and said the bishop would like you to do this, and 2 of them was just after I announced that I was going to be in that parish for another 6 years.
Oh my God!
So I got up one week and said, "Oh, I'm very happy to announce that I've been assigned to this parish for another 6 years." And then a month later, having to say, "Well, the bishop has asked me to go somewhere else," and it was sort of tough. And it's like there's like a dying process almost, you know. I mean, and both of those places I would have stayed. I applied to stay for another 6 years. So at least this one is tough as it's going to be, but again, it's not like I'm going somewhere else.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, this is the end of my active ministry, and I'm going to relax and retire and help out, you know, and do that. But that's a part of a priest's life. It's something you have to do eventually, you know. But this one, at least the people aren't surprised. It's not a shock, or it's not like you know, just I mean, it's not an announcement of.
I'll never forget when you first came here. There was a parishioner of yours from Lockport, and she was an aide at St. Mary's, and and she came in after the announcement, and she looked at me and she goes, "I'm mad at you." And it was because, and I said, "You're mad at me?" She goes, "Well, you got Father Joe." I just love Father Joe. I'm going to miss him. It breaks my heart that he's gone. And she said, I said, oh, were you really close to him? And she goes, no, I just attended. I always stood in the back. He probably wouldn't know me, but she said, he was just the priest I needed for that time in my life. And she said, so I'm mad at you for stealing him. And you've been with us through such a flux, with selling the school building, with building the new hall, which is beautiful. And, anybody who hasn't had a chance to get to see it, I encourage them to, because it's beautiful. What a nice gathering space that we have. And you kind of just gave us the support that we needed and spearheaded a lot of those big moments.
Well, I think another part of the St. Paul's time was I was amazed at how people worked together. We had to go to a trailer for the office. I had to move to St. Andrews for 6 months.
I forgot about that.
I mean, there were so many things that people were asked to do different. Religious side was at St. Andrews. I mean, and that's why I think about this family of parishes. We're almost got it started with that, working well with St. Andrews together,
So going with that, and we had talked a little bit before because there was a question on what are the thoughts going forward with the renewal, and you said you'd like to share some.
Yeah, I really think, and I've talked to my favorite priests who I really respect and are respected, and some of them have high positions in diocese. And I think our thing is something had to be done. We just couldn't go in the same direction with, the declining number of priests and collections going down, the number of people attending Mass, the results of the pandemic, younger families not being involved as they used to be. And so we had to take a look at that. Now, I think what's going to be telling is the pilot parishes, the first group of families, and see how it has to be tweaked, or is it going to fail miserably, or are some going to be very successful and others not so successful? So before we judge or say we don't think this is a good idea, or something had to be done. Let's at least see how this goes.
And I think too, we're always so afraid, and I think that's even one of those things where we spend so much of our time maybe in fear that anything that we hear that's different, it's, oh my gosh, this is the end. I think, we've just experienced a massive event, but even before the massive event, anytime someone said, oh, something has to change, well, this is it. Everyone always goes right to that point because I think we're so afraid. But I think the idea that you illustrated, it's phased, so it can be tweaked. And even here at St. Paul's, we're in the last family, or the last grouping, so we get the advantage of everybody else checking it first. So one other question that I found kind of interesting, because we've been trying to do a lot of online outreach, is we're meeting some people who have said, oh, I used to go to St. Paul's. I miss it, or it has a special place in my heart. And one of the people said, I've always loved that church. It's had a special place in my heart. And it's almost like there's a hesitancy for some of them to come back. What would you say to people that, feel like they're afraid of coming back to church?
Okay. Usually people don't come up to you and say that, or I've experienced more people coming back after they've been to like a funeral or a wedding, and or you did a baptism and they might have been away, but this is a start, and or they just haven't been, even though this is their church, but their friend got buried here or married here and stuff, they were here and they liked how the ceremony went, the personality, the just being open and making everyone feel comfortable. And they say, oh, you know, and so then they would start coming, you know. And I don't go out to recruit, like, you know, except sometimes at Christmas, like at Christmas, or, well, more at Christmas than Easter, but Christmas when the crowds are really packed in here, and I never want to say, well, where have you been, or that kind of thing. I says, well, we do have, for those who are visiting, you know, and make them feel at ease. You know, I said, this is what we're doing, and, you know, please come back if you're in the neighborhood, you know, and just to make them wanted, you know, and
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
That idea of we want you here.
Yeah.
We do care. And I think that's one thing that I have to say personally, I think you've brought a lot to this church because everybody talks to you. And I see out so many of the kids even that run up, they have to give Father Joe their hug on the way out, which I speak to that only having grown up with Monsignor Doucette, whom I loved, but I was terrified of. I remember I never wanted, I thought I was going to get yelled at.
Well, a lot of times, but you know, here's the thing, like I mentioned about St. Mary's and the pastor. A lot of time when you're a little kid, if a person has gray hair and they're old, you think they're mean. You know, I mean, you just don't want to be around them until you get to know them. And that's a like. And because I never knew my grandfathers, so that made it even harder for me. Well, how do you trust an old guy?
Yeah.
You know, and then of course they lined us up for confession and grammar school, and we every other week probably, and they would line us either to Father Hassler, which everyone was happy about. They'd line us up to Father Bugman, everyone was happy about. They went Monsignor Lake, and then oh no, but then you went in and you talked to him, and he was very kind and very loving, and so that's how you got over that, you know.
And I think that's such a great point. It's like getting to know, and that's one thing I think through the pandemic I think was nice, is that we got to maybe reach out and do things that we might not have gotten to do,
That's right.
or people who might have been on the fence or didn't know where to even turn. They got to see things. And the next question I had is, somebody asked, what are your favorite memories over the last, 7+ years?
Oh.
Which I know there've been a lot, but...
Well, I think before the pandemic, I was very involved at Mount St. Mary's and St. Amelia's, St. Andrew's, getting involved with the parish school again. And a lot of the people that were at St. Christopher's were teaching at Mount St. Mary's that were very close friends of mine. So they all grew up from 3rd grade, and now they're in positions of leadership at Mount St. Mary's. The fraternity of the priests in the area, my best friend, Father Rogliano, Father Madsen, how, getting together regular for meals and doing things together. No drama, hardly. No drama. We didn't, some parishes you go to, there's a group that has to complain about everything, and as soon as you see them coming, there's trouble on the way. And but here, very little drama. And if there was, I nipped it in the bud, And I remember a specific one about the having prayer services for, and see, the people here never had to go through a journey of faith and grace where you were going to daily mass every day, and all of a sudden your church is closed. So you don't only have daily mass, you don't have weekend mass and stuff like that. And in the country, whether it was in Allegheny County or in Orleans County in Medina, when a priest went away on vacation, they were used to having prayer services and just a priest on the weekends. I mean, it was just, they knew that was the only way they could. you know. So that was part of it, but that's just, you know, and now they have no problem with it. And a number of people from the parish stepped up to lead those services. And I think once they got familiar with that situation, they liked it, and at least they were having something.
Well, and I think that's even too, to just piggyback a little bit onto the renewal. That's even something that it's really interesting, because we've been going through a lot of the history of St. Paul's, and one of the big things they talk about was when St. John Newman was here, they only got to see him maybe every 2 weeks. And even with only getting to see him, they still were devoted enough, you know, because people were, I feel like they put a lot of focus on what was important. And I think that's something that I really have enjoyed working with you over the last 7 years. I've seen the people smiling more because they didn't talk a lot to each other. You know, they would come out for things, but they didn't talk a lot to each other. And now they do talk. They stay after church. I think the Cups of Joe used to be a really, really great thing.
The other thing I wanted to say was that I really thought was the high points were the seasonal changes in our liturgy worship committee, making it different every year. You never knew what you were going to get when you came into church, to make it look Christmassy or Eastery. You know, I mean, just a thought process. People just think, oh, somebody comes in and puts flowers around or something like that. But just the different music that's selected, or how we present it, you know, what are we doing? And to do that during that pandemic too was a tough call. When we didn't even have Mass, we didn't have a Lent, you know.
No.
You know, I mean, those are things that are memorable. But, you know, other than that, fantastic staff. I think if it wasn't for our staff, we would have disintegrated during this whole thing. That would have just been, and I'm sure some places might have, you know, or it like made out a lot worse than we did.
Well, and I'll never forget, because you were lucky enough with getting to go to Aruba, and it was, I remember the travel agent said, nope, you're going to be fine. And I was like, okay, well, have a good trip. And you came
We
back.
got voted off the island. We got voted off the island and had to come back and go in quarantine. Of course, everyone was in quarantine.
Yeah.
No, the stores weren't open.
I'll never forget just coming here, because you know, we came and we filmed we filmed the masses, and we filmed our prayerful songs, or all those other things, and I will never forget how empty the streets were.
Yeah.
What you know, it was what you see in the movies, yeah, with no one going anywhere, but we survived.
That's right.
You know, and the people were so supportive through so much of that, which was just really, really wonderful. And the last thing that I wanted to just bring up, just because I have you here, one of the things that I always hear the fondest memories, because I get to work at St. Christopher's too, is how Don Dwyer talks about how Father Joe would give the best homilettes. It would be the homilettes, and how he enjoyed. Did you play in the folk group with them?
I did it 2 times. Up until I went to St. Barnabas, and I played if I didn't have Mass, you know, and it was fun. But then it's like the same thing happened with my golf game. Once you got to be a pastor, and there were so many added things you have to do, you just couldn't find time to do all this stuff, you know. So I mean, that's just part of life.
But they still talk fondly, and so many of them. I mean, Susan Fisher, Don Dwyer, all of these people.
That was my first assignment.
They adored Father Joe from back in the day. So
now you got to remember too. When I was there, I was 26 years old,
yeah,
fresh out of the seminary, and my whole view of priesthood was so much different. And I just wanted to make the pastor happy. I always wonder if I was doing the right thing. Plus, just your growing up. You know, when you're being 26, it's a lot different than being 55. You know what I mean? The things you learn and how you mature and what's important to you is so much different than when you were 26 years old. You know?
Absolutely. I think back even for myself, and 26 was only 6 years ago, but the mindset of 6 years ago versus now, it's just a fascinating thing. So is there anything else that you want to leave with the people? This has been wonderful, and we thank you.
I just hope, I know as much as, it's like 10 weeks left, you know what I mean? And I'm not counting the days, it's just that time is there.
When it's numbered, just
you know, and plus you got Easter and confirmation and First Communion coming, so it's going to go by fast. But, and I just hope that people don't really think I'm really looking forward to this retirement, but I am looking forward to relaxing a little more, the administrative things. I mean, I'm not 26 anymore, I'm 70, you know, and being able to spend more time with my family and going to things I couldn't go to because I'd have to get a substitute or something like that.
Exactly.
You know? And being there for people that need me, especially at this time in our lives when, you know, it's not our parents that are dying, it's our brothers that are dying or our friends that are dying, you know what I mean? To be there for that. So I know it's going to be traumatic those last couple of weeks, and it'll be difficult, but the grace of God takes you through it, you know, and that's, I don't know what else to say.
Well, thank you so very much for all your years, for your friendship, for everything that you've given all of us. We can't thank you enough.
Well, thank you too.
So thank you all for joining us. We really appreciate you being here, and we'll see you on Friday for our Prayerful Fridays.